If you're an avid watcher of anime, there are always going to be some shows that stick out more than others and resonate with you longer than the other shows you've seen will. Whether it be because the anime was really good, or really bad, or really weird, there are just going to be some shows that linger in your mind longer than others. For me, one show that always comes to mind when I think of the animes I've seen before is Future Diary, a 26-episode anime released October 10th, 2011. Adapted from a 2006 manga, the show revolves around Yukiteru Amano and Yuno Gasai being pitted against 10 other people equipped with diaries on their phones that can predict the future, all trying to outlast and kill everyone else so that they can succeed the throne of Deus Ex Machina, the god of space and time, and be declared the new ruler. The plot alone was interesting enough, but I wondered what else made Future Diary so memorable even after not having seen it all the way through since middle school. Well, after rewatching it, I still really don't know why. In fact, I like it even less now, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Without further ado, let's go over the good and bad of Future Diary. I'm gonna be blunt with you guys, I feel there's a lot more bad than there is good, so we're gonna be tackling the positives first. The most notable thing with this anime is the aforementioned plot, which makes the anime consistently interesting to watch. It's split up into about 2 to 3 episode arcs where each arc sort of focuses on a specific diary user that Yuki and Yuno need to kill, so it plays out kinda like a villain of the week show, which is one of my favorite tropes in television, so huge plus there. I also like the situations that Yuki and Yuno are thrown into. They help keep the story and conflict fresh because the scenario is constantly changing along with each new diary user. They escape their school that got rigged with explosives, fight off a hypnotized cult, be framed for a crime and have to escape a police station with all the officers gunning for them. It's consistently entertaining and there isn't a single scenario the characters were thrown into that I could say was uninteresting. Next positive, the music is pretty sweet, especially the piece they use for emotional scenes, the action, and the first opening. Oh man, it's godlike, super memorable, fits the show perfectly. It's like top 50 best anime openings at least. I will say though, the second opening is really lame. It's sung entirely in English, but the singer predominantly speaks Japanese, so it's English and it doesn't sound good. For my final positive, the voice acting is very good. When it comes to anime dubs, there's like 10 people who dub every single show, and Future Diary has a lot of them, so yeah, it's good. Good delivery, good emotion, they're pros. It's basically a given for the voice acting to be good. Alright, that was the stuff I liked, so now let's get on to the stuff that I didn't like. So I said the voice acting was good, which it is, but the dialogue isn't. It's pretty bog standard for the most part, nothing really mind-blowing per se, but occasionally it dives into some bad territory with teen talk, words like, totally, check it, and they're all shoehorned into lines that would have just been how a normal person talks. The characters themselves aren't too good as well. At best, they're fine. At their worst, they're completely lame. And I don't mean from a moral standpoint, I mean from a written standpoint. It makes sense that they're not good people, but narratively, they're boring. Even Yuki, who is the best character, is the classic wimpy protagonist who can't really do anything for himself. He's like that for about 2/3 of the anime, and it gets old. Yuki also flip-flops on his feelings for Yuno, who herself is just a generic yandere protagonist a lot. I mean, the girl is clearly crazy, and he knows that firsthand, but he still acts on the fence about how he feels. For example, Yuki finds dead bodies in Yuno's house, but he quickly casts that obvious red flag aside. Yuno also gives Yuki's mom a concussion because of her paranoia, but he's fine with it pretty quickly. Yuno straight up roofies Yuki, takes him as her captive, but a few episodes later, he doesn't really care. It's pretty bad story-wise because the plot requires that Yuki rely on Yuno to get him through the survival game, but they kept coming up with reasons he should hightail it out of there, or I don't know, kill the girl. Another issue is the action. I said the scenarios were cool, but when it comes to actual fighting, it's very mindless, and only gets decent at the very end. It mostly consists of Yuki and Yuno running away from the enemy, or Yuno stabbing people, doesn't do a good job of keeping the viewer's attention, and just overall feels very empty. Now, those are all pretty sizable problems, but all of them pale in comparison to this show's biggest issue, the ending. Without a doubt, it is one of, if not the most convoluted, cluttered, and confusing endings to an anime I've ever seen, and to really put it into perspective, I gotta explain it all, so huge spoilers coming up. Oh boy. Just try and keep up, okay? So the world that Yuki and Yuno are in is actually a second world that was created by the first world's Yuno after she won that world's survival game. At the end of the first world's survival game, Yuki and Yuno take a suicide pact, but only Yuki follows through because Yuno believed that if she were to win, she could bring Yuki back from the dead anyway. She can't, so out of desperation, she uses her newfound powers as God to take her back to a point in the past where Yuki is still alive, creating the second world in the process. The first world Yuno then kills Yuno of the second world and takes her place, so the Yuno that we have been following for the entire anime is actually the Yuno from the first world. Upon figuring this out, Yuki confronts the first world Yuno, but is quickly stopped by Murmur. She basically plays the role of assistant to anyone who is God. Yuki is then saved by the ninth diary user, who was previously thought to be dead, but was saved by Deus, who gives Ninth a portion of his godlike powers. Hold on. There's still more. Ninth then takes the second world's Yuki to a third world to prevent the first world's Yuno from killing the Yuno of the third world, taking her place and starting the survival game all over again. Yuki and Ninth beat first world Yuno to third world Yuno, but seeing the state that third world Yuno is in causes Yuki and Ninth to take her with them so they can protect her. We can fast forward through this next part, it's mostly action. Now at the school, first world Yuno traps second world Yuki in a fourth world made perfectly for him where Yuno does not exist. Yuki decides that any life without Yuno is a life that isn't worth living, so he escapes that world back to the third world. As this is happening, first world Yuno tries to kill third world Yuno, but the third diary user, a cop, shoots at first world Yuno, but the bullet is stopped by a Murmur from the second world, who was sealed away by the first world Murmur so that she could take the second world's Murmur's place. Hang on a minute. There's still more. So after escaping the fourth world back into the third world, Yuki tells first world Yuno to stab him so she can win the survival game and continue being God. Yuno says, yeah, no, and stabs herself because she and Yuki made a deal that she wouldn't kill him. So with Yuki being the last diary user, he is declared the winner and therefore the new God, bringing an end to the survival game. Hold on, because there's still a bit more, but I'm gonna rush it because I'm tired. So Yuki winning the survival game undid all the events that happened in the third world, including that world's survival game, meaning that every diary user that took part in the game go on to live normal lives. Second world Yuki, the one that became God, decided that it's not worth it to create a new world if he can't be with Yuno, so he decides to sulk for a bit until the Yuno of the third world is able to make her way from the third world to the second world where she and Yuki can finally be together. The end.
Jesus Christ!
In conclusion, Future Diary is an odd anime, a great premise with interesting sequences, but plagued with numerous problems throughout, from the mostly lame characters to the sometimes downright crappy dialogue. The confusing trope of time travel and the so-so action makes Future Diary a bit of a hard sell. To me, I'm biased because this is one of my first animes, might have even been my second ever, I don't remember, but watching it again with new eyes on how I view entertainment, I can't really recommend it. Unless you just want a nothing show to put on, give you something to watch, and just kind of absorb, then Future Diary will fit that slot perfectly, but otherwise, find something else. And that was the good and bad of Future Diary. And with that all said, I'm Easily Easy, and I'll see you next time.